I've said it once and I'll say it again. It's all about the memory of a goldfish for this team. Just forget the past.
Yeah, hey, I'm in a good mood. I was rethinking the scenario, and I think if you have all these people back, you probably get a couple more wins on the season.
I think that the message has to be pretty simple this week. The postseason starts now.
Hail to the Commanders! It's the Commanders Squad. Everything Washington Commanders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of the nation's capital. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Rally the burgundy and gold. The Commanders Squad Show starts now.
All right, David Harrison, Nick Ashew, Anthony Armstrong. We are looking past what happened last week. We are forgetting the 4-game losing streak. We are forgetting all of the things that happened because really it's not going to change anything. We've got to look ahead now to the Lions and where the Commanders are and post-trade deadline as well, because even though the Commanders weren't involved, there were other teams that were involved, and a couple of them certainly could affect them the rest of the season here. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The last couple of weeks, it's really been a conversation, right, of like, there's going to be certain deadlines, certain things that are going to happen for this team to really dictate what the season's going to be. And even though we're not going to know exactly what their mindset is until we actually watch them on the field and hear some of the things maybe that are said post-game moving forward. The trade deadline was certainly one of them, and that's now passed. The Cowboys got involved a little bit. We know the Eagles and Howie Roseman are always involved, and that's exactly what happened with them sort of over that stretch, David. You are obviously around the team. You're going to hear Dan Quinn in a little while after that we're doing the show live, but anybody that's listening or watching afterwards, that's certainly going to be a conversation within the locker room, within the coaching staff, within the front office, within the media, everybody. Just kind of where we're sitting now, are you surprised at all that they didn't make any moves and they basically stood pat with everything that's gone on and all the injuries?
I'm really not, just because this is a team that clearly is not in a position to kind of quote unquote go all in, right? Like, you're not, you would love to have a guy like Sauce Gardner on your team, but you can't look at this team and say, well, if we only had Sauce, then this team is probably undefeated, or things like that, or we can book our playoff tickets, right? But at the same time, this is something that I've kind of just been looking at since that game ended, even Sunday night, Monday morning after the game, and then Monday when Dan was on the Zoom with everybody, and then even Monday when he does his sit down with Chick Hernandez, I get to be in the room to write the story for digital for WSA9.com, and just talking to Dan there, like, 0 sense that anybody is punting on this season, 0 sense that anybody thinks this is over. The final bell hasn't rung, 10 count hasn't happened, all that kind of stuff. So when you have that mentality, the whole, become sellers and trade away Deron Payne and Deebo Samuel and all that stuff doesn't really fit, right? So I just kind of felt like if Dan has that presence and that mentality, then usually he and AP are in sync and kind of where they are as a team. And I feel like AP probably has that mentality as well, which means you got the guys you got. You're gonna continue the process the best way you can, and you're gonna go out there and you're gonna try to win football games.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it, where you say, okay, injuries are a complete wild card that you cannot, they're going to be there, but just not to this magnitude. Mm-hmm. And as I was driving in the car, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, like, even if you just had Jayden Daniels healthy, Terry McLaurin healthy, not even training camp, but just healthy, and then just one other player, I think you can say this team would be a 5-win team. They maybe have 5 wins right now. They'd be a little bit better because there's still bad football on tape, right? And that's the one thing, like, you can't fix that just by picking out one player and then putting somebody else out there. It's schematic. It's the communication between the coaching. I don't know what's going on, but there's some bad football that's been out there on tape. And now with the change of Joe Witt coming down to the sideline, you're taking out one bit of communication where maybe that's where the information is getting skewed. Not saying that it is, but now you're going to hear it from the DCs from what he sees, and he can communicate it to the folks on the field. So them not getting overly involved in the trade deadline, I thought that you could have heard something, but it really, really wasn't overly surprising, because I think this is just a blip on the radar. The key for me is that you're getting key reps from players that you needed to find out about anyways. Right, you had to find out what Luke McCaffrey was going to turn into. You had to see what you had from some of your younger players. It's unfortunate it had to go through all these injuries, Nick, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it feels better to stay and pat where you're at and trust the process moving forward than trying to bring in new pieces and change up the game.
Yeah, it was either stay where you are or sell and get more draft picks. I mean, that was really the only answer given where this team is. And, listen, the old organization, the past organization might have offered a couple of first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, but thankfully that's not the direction they went because, look, we need to be honest with ourselves here. They're not one or two players away right now. They're just not. And really what happened, and I go back to last season into this year because I think it's really important to keep that in mind, is that what that did was kick the can down the road where essentially this part now, and Anthony, I mean, you just talked about it, right? Like seeing certain guys and getting that evaluation period for some younger players. It's an old roster. We know that. And it's an injured roster. We know that. But you do have some younger players that you want to give more opportunities to, that you want to see Chris Rodriguez. And if they could give more carries to Chris Rodriguez or anybody else, this is the chance now to do it. Look, the pressure, the expectations, all of those things, they're lower now on this team. It's just that simple. And the way I'm going to watch these games, the way I'm going to view this team, the way my expectations are going to sit the rest of the way are no longer win the division or get back to an NFC championship game, which, by the way, they weren't those expectations coming into this year anyway, but they're definitely not that now. But realistically, this is, okay, let's see what we've got. Let's now really look at what the foundation is going to be moving forward. And I use a comparison to the Wizards and how they've built this team. And that's really extreme. And again, 24 or 12 players under the age or that are 24 or below. Like, they're really, really young. They're the polar opposite of where this team is. But that mindset of let's see what we've got. And it's not going to be to that extreme with the Commanders, but that's kind of where their mindset is going to have to be now is, okay, let's look at some of these other players and let's look for the small wins, right? This team's dreaming big, but you got to celebrate small at this point. It's really going to be, David, about kind of looking at some of these individual younger guys that are just going to be forced into roles that maybe they weren't going to get before. But in the end, now that the expectation, look, they're not going to say it publicly. The expectation is no longer going to be maybe what it was at the beginning of the season. The actions are now going to be, let's see what we've got with some of these other guys moving forward. And now we really start the clock on a true rebuild for long-term success.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of just depends on which level of this organization you're at. You know what I mean? I know Adam Peters and his staff are kind of always looking forward and always evaluating. And in that sense, if you're a player in this team, you're being evaluated 24/7 for what your future.
Right. That's a really good
gonna
point.
look
Let me
like
make
with
sure I
this
make
team.
that clear is like, it depends on who you are. Like, it depends on players are going to be
Yeah.
just about playing, but you're right. I think it depends on certainly where, David, you are within the structure of the organization.
Yeah, and I think that from head coach Dan Quinn's perspective, like if Adam Peters sitting here saying, "Hey, dude, like listen, we need to see what we have in Ben Sinnott. We need to see what we have in Chris Rodriguez. We need to see what we have in Jordan McGee fully." Like the challenge there as the coach is how do you weave in that need with your need to keep these players competing, keep this team on hopefully what is a competitive path, and to try to find ways to win football games. I think the positive you have there, and it's. Again, it's a little bit, I would say dumbfounding for a lack of a better word, honestly. But there's a history there. They even talked about it on Sunday night, right? Like Sunday Night Football, I went back and watched the broadcast tape, and Chris is out there doing his thing and running really well. And that broadcast team, said, earlier in the season, they had a couple of games where Chris Rodriguez was involved early, and it really set the tone for them, and they did really good things. And I'm like, this national broadcast team that only pays attention to you 2 or 3 times a year knows this information. I don't know, maybe they're listening to Commander Squad. But whatever it is, they know this. So it just kind of goes back to we talk about analytics, and we talk about data, and we talk about tape. Look, on the tape, things like getting Chris Rodriguez going early shows that it helps your offense. The analytics show that it helps your offense. The strategy of it shows that it helps your offense. So like, why it isn't already part of that? Nick, you're getting spun up on my Chris Rodriguez soapbox, but like why it's not already part of the strategy, I can't tell you. But I think that is the key moving forward, right? Like, listen, when Trent Scott was in there as an extra offensive lineman helping out blocking, the team was doing much better protecting the quarterback, whether it was Jayden or Marcus than anything else. He's been inactive the last 2 weeks. And I understand, like, Brandon Coleman needed to step in the left tackle for Laramie Tunsil for a game or whatever. But, like, dude, like, if Trent Scott is giving you the best look for your offensive line when you go heavy with him as an eligible, then why is he inactive for the game? You know what I mean? Zach Ertz, like I love Zach as a professional, as an experienced veteran on the team, but like he's had false starts, he's had drops. Like this has just not been a banner season for Zach Ertz. So why are we not then? It's not even about holding Zach accountable. it's like, look, dude, like you're kind of in the weeds a little bit. Let's go ahead and spin some of these other guys up. You see sets where it's John Bates and Ben Sinnott, but what you rarely see is Ben Sinnott getting routes where he's in an opportunity to actually be a legitimate part of the progression. Why are we not doing these things to find out, right? Like, is this actually a better path forward? Same thing with the linebackers, going with more 3 linebacker looks. They did it against Kansas City. It worked out pretty well. They did it less against Seattle. I don't understand like why these shifts in the personnel are happening while we're going away from things that are looking good, at least in the times that we're using them.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with Chris Rodriguez getting more action. I think he needs to lead the way and get a lot of carries. He needs to get the double-digit carries, to be honest. But sometimes I feel like with the no huddle aspect, it's difficult to have to go through. Like people have to be out there, right? They have to be out there. You're going to get to work with the same group of people, the same 11. So when you're switching in all these other folks, I'm wondering, it obviously has to be throwing off some chemistry, right? It has to throw off the way things are happening. And I don't know why. Ben Sinnott's not getting the look. He's getting out there. He's showing a lot more effort, but yeah, I'm with you. There's definitely a lot of question marks and some things that you'd have to ask schematically and strategy wise. It'd be like these guys should be on the field, and you're making a concerted effort to go away from them. It's not like they've played themselves out of it. And I'm referring to Rodriguez. He hasn't played himself out of anything. I don't know what he did. He made a DM somebody. I don't know what he did, but the man is not on the field, and he brings a lot of impact. And there's something that they got to really consider, and that when you start to evaluate the coaching side of things, right? Just what is our game plan? Why is the strategy changing this way? It's like, do you feel like you can just all of a sudden spread a team out, even though you need to try to protect your quarterback? I don't know. It's definitely interesting. A lot of good questions to bring up inside the building. Hell, David has the opportunity to ask them, but yeah, definitely some good questions to bring up because I want to see a change in effort on the field. I saw a question come through talking about they want to change the scheme. Their issue on the defense is that everybody's like, why are you playing man if you don't have man corners? Well, because playing zone without a pass rush gets you toe up like Swiss cheese. So you at least have to try to slow somebody down. The issue is what I've seen on a few reps, when they're playing press man, nobody's using their hands. They're trying to dance with people, and they're just trying to shadow box and mirror them. These are some quick, shifty suckers, man. JSN damn near tore Amos's groin. Like, you got to get hands on these players. You have to, or else they run wide open. So until you get a pass rusher or you play a little bit more physical out on the edge, we're going to be seeing bad football on the other side.
I'm looking in the chat here right now. And by the way, you're giving me just nightmares thinking about JSN and what he did. Not that anybody should be surprised. It's exactly what I mean. Him going off was one of the most predictable things of the entire NFL weekend. But, I'm looking at a lot of the comments here, and it's funny. This is one of the few times where I feel like more and more people are just aligned of like, play the young guys. Like, let's fully lean into this. And it's true. Like, the Poster King's on here talking about Sinnott playing and sitting Ertz. And it's with as great as Zach Ertz was last year. And then, David, you brought up a lot of the mistakes, the false starts, the penalties, the mental errors that weren't there before. When you have a veteran who's maybe past their prime, but obviously we saw the production more last season. At times we've seen it again, but it's been more of a balance of negative and positive for Zach Ertz. You're not getting the benefits of the consistency of a veteran if he's making those mental mistakes. So it's time to start seeing what you have, because we know they need to address the tight end position like pretty much every other position on this entire roster. McGee out there more, and Johnny Newton, Medrano, like these are names now that we should see more of. And I think if this organization and the coaching staff specifically, but let's be honest, there's going to be a level of clearance that has to come from the upper management down to the field to let them know, like, hey, start playing some of these guys. If they start to look at this as a full-on, we are going to get a full picture of Johnny Newton, or Senator, again, like just all those names I just mentioned. If you lean into that as an organization, this fan base is at least smart enough to understand, like, okay, you at least have a blueprint and a plan given the circumstances that you're given, right? You can't control the injuries. To a point, you can control some level of injuries, but I think we all know this, right? The NFL, it's a lot of those things where you have to look and just say, injuries happen. We're now dealing with it. We have to control how we react to it. The best way, David, for this team to react to all of these injuries is to lean in to all of the young guys as much as they possibly can. So we're not just talking about how old this team is and how crusty they are and how they got nobody out there that can stay healthy. Let the young guys get an opportunity. The fan base will at least understand, okay, you got a plan. I can get on board with that. And by the way, it makes it a lot easier to watch this team week after week knowing that that's the plan versus, I don't know, we just got to throw somebody out here and see what we can do, and maybe we'll win 7 games. That doesn't work. We've seen that before here.
Yeah, we're kind of in that purgatory right now where like the team wants to continue to compete. The team, look, we go, this is like the teams do. We go 11-6 this season and make the postseason and do all these things. And the fans and even parts of the media are kind of like, yeah, bro, look, you're 3-6. You're not going 11-6, right? Like that's just not going to be a reality in your life. But like that's just kind of the counter opinions, the counter views of both sides. I think what's important though, like I don't think the team is there yet, right? Because like DQ was asked actually on Monday in the Zoom a little bit about like prioritizing getting younger players more experience versus maybe playing your vets that you believe give you a better chance to win. And he basically flat out said we're not there yet. So that's not really something you should expect from this team, even though we're all kind of are speaking about it. Now they could certainly get there, in the next couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks, not counting the bye. But I think that what's important as well is that we as media members and those of us who are watching the team closely and have a platform to deliver to people, but also fans be open to also understanding that when the team gives those opportunities, you got to take what's happening with those opportunities, as realistic as possible. So like I look at Jordan McGee, for example, and there was a lot of early season conversation of bench Bobby Wagner, put in Jordan McGee. Well, look, Jordan McGee has gotten 3 games of substantial snaps. He's got over 150 defensive snaps now this season. He's doubled up his last season snaps, combined between defense and special teams. And the truth of the matter is, and I know that there's a lot of varying opinions about PFF grades. I talked about this on my show, so I'll try to be quick here on this one. But the thing you can say about PFF grades is if you're an off-ball linebacker, this is an off-ball linebacker, you're both graded on the same criteria. Both these guys are in the same scheme. They're going up against the same opponents. And I'll tell you right now, Bobby Wagner's grades are blowing Jordan McGee's grades out of the water. So not only is Bobby Wagner the better option right now for this team to try to go out and win right now, but he's also just significantly better than Jordan McGee. Now, the flip side of that is, well, Jordan can only get better if he has more reps. Got it. He's not there yet, but the reps he's getting, again, you got to be honest, the reps he's getting are significantly not as good as the old guy that everybody wants to see sitting on the sideline. So you got to receive it. Like he's getting that opportunity, over 150 reps, over 100 of them solely in the last 3 weeks alone. He's getting that opportunity now, and it hasn't been great. The Kansas City Chiefs went left, they went right. They went after everybody on the edges. It's not just a Bobby Wagner issue. It's a systemic issue within the entire defense. So if we see Ben Sinnott get those targets, you know what I mean? Like in the next 2 weeks before the bye week, Ben Sinnott gets 10 targets, brings in 2 passes, has 2 drops, and maybe fumbles a reception. Like we also have to be honest, brokers, and sit here and say, all right, Ben got his opportunities. It didn't really work out that well. So where do we go from here, right? We can't just say, well, we want the young guy. So no matter what the young guy does, we just continue to pound the table for the young guy because it sounds like the good answer. I think that's really the important thing. And again, I'm high on Jordan McGee. I think his future is very bright. It's just to say, clearly, he is not there yet. And that's without the green dot. That's without needing to be the communicator, the setter, the quarterback of the defense. So when you add all that other stuff in that Bobby does, you add all that weight to his shoulders, it's not going to get any better.
And wearing the green dot, that's a lot of responsibility to, where Jordan McGee came in. He was expected to be able to learn behind Bobby for a couple of seasons and, slowly build that trajectory. And to your point with his reps doubling, that experience is key. And where inside the building, you believe you can go 11-6, right? That's the mantra. You're still walking in there like, okay, we're going to win the game. Like, I don't care if it's 8.5-point dogs against Detroit at the crib. We're going to find a way to win. We just got to win with lesser pieces. You know what I'm saying? And it's one thing of saying we're just going to line up a fourth preseason game lineup of just a whole bunch of guys who are about to get cut. I ain't saying all of that. Now, I think that you got to think about the people who you truly are going to need to be in this organization in the future. What positions do you need to address in the offseason? It's just bringing some of those conversations to the forefront, right? If they've already had a couple of people circled in pencil where they're thinking maybe we make a change, now they're like, okay, let's really decide on somebody with that. So to your point of putting in, McGee, you can either play yourself into a job or you can play yourself off of a field and off of a job too. So it cuts both ways. Just because you want to give them the reps, you're not going to just let them say, hey man, you're young, don't worry about it, go mess up. No, play good football, because I need to see you grow. I still need to see you make some strides. You can't make those same mistakes that you made when you were younger. But also, we're not going to sabotage it and throw all these young guys out there who are going to be wide-eyed. I mean, David, you've been in battle. I'm sure you've seen a new soldier get out there, get kind of, a little wide-eyed out there in battle. I don't want you to do that. That's bad. But, key spots, put some young guys in there, let them try to develop.
Yeah, I think there's no question that, this is a spot, David, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. This is a spot, though, where there's a level of threading the needle, right? Where David, you're going to have to look at this and say, there's various worlds and opinions for people that I think you have to balance with this too.
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? And like Anthony just said, you also have some older players, right, that are kind of in the mix for the 2026 team. Like, you can't just jettison everybody, right? You have to figure out kind of who's going to be, part of your solution for the future, who's maybe going to be someone that you move on from, and maybe you start seeing some of those signs here at the end of the season. But again, right, like I think right now we're really on two different paths. Like, like us and the fans, like we're on one path, and the team is really on a whole other path. So it's kind of this like fine line dance. Like I got crossover Thursday recording tonight with Matt Berry of Locked On Lions, and my job in that crossover is to talk about how do the Washington Commanders overcome everything that's gone on this season. How do they overcome the loss of Jayden Daniels? How do they beat the Detroit Lions? So guess what? I'm going to come into that. I'm going to do my best, Anthony. I'm going to watch as much tape as I possibly can between now and 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday night when Matt and I sit down to record this thing. And I'm going to look at Lions tape. I'm going to look at Commanders tape. I'm like, ooh, look at this DB who doesn't handle speed very well and doesn't handle this type of a break very well. So maybe Cliff Kingsbury can use this kind of break against this guy on third down and da-da-da-da. And you know what? Look, Saturday, 8:25 p.m. or so. I don't know what the result's going to be. I don't know what we're going to be talking about, but that's where we're going to be, because that is the focus of the team. So that balancing act of, what is it the fans want? What is the media think should happen? And what is it the team is trying to do? At 3-6, you're just nobody's on the same page. But really, I mean, it's actually the perfect illustration of this entire team. I will tell you this, though, and I can't report too much on it because I'm not technically allowed to a certain extent, but walking past the indoor practice facility. So for those who don't know, the team does a walkthrough. They do a walkthrough, then they go in for some more meetings, classroom, and then they go out on the practice field. That's when we get to see them practice. So the walkthrough is inside in the practice facility, in the indoor practice facility. Walking by it, coming into the parking lot this morning, I could hear high energy. Obviously you hear the music, but you can also hear the guys. And when you can hear the guys over the music, that means there's high energy. You can hear some coaches barking some orders. And then one of the times I looked over here was because they were walking into the building. And listen, I got noise canceling, AirPod Pro 3s. Like, we ain't broke out here. We got the good stuff. We got the newest technology. And even through the noise canceling, I could hear them walking in the building. You know what I mean? So spirits are high. So when Dan Quinn comes in here at 12:30 and y'all watch the YouTube or whatever, hopefully you're watching this, but if you watch the YouTube version of that after that, and you hear him say, yeah, we're all raring to go. We're all out here. And you're like, that's just coach speak. He's full of it. Like, I can tell you right now, no, he's not, because I've just heard them. And they're definitely high energy out here today in Ashburn. So that is where their focus is.
Let me tell you this. If you can hear them through the noise canceling, we won't get into a discussion of whether Apple's the best or not. That's a conversation for another day, because we got one Galaxy person on this show and one person that used to have a Galaxy that will argue that he was forced into Apple. Whole other conversation. That's still where, but what that is also a sign to me, David, is it like, one, the mindset is still we want to win football games. And I think that's the hard part too, right? It's easy for us to say evaluate the young guys, which I 100% do believe there needs to be more of that. But you still have to sell a certain culture and a certain mindset for the rest of the season for some of the other veterans. That this may be their last season, last couple of seasons in the NFL, whatever the case is. So it's really a threading the needle. Oh, and by the way, you've got to also let the coaching staff know, or at least the head coach, hey, go ahead and give some of the younger guys more opportunities. Your job is safe, because if Dan Quinn thinks he's coaching for his job, he's going to make decisions that are going to be different than what it would be if it's, hey, you're definitely here next year. Here's the bigger plan. We're on board with that. All right, we'll look ahead, of course, to the actual Lions game coming up, what the mindset will be for the rest of the season, and maybe specifically some more of those hidden gems and who they could be. All that still coming up here on Commander Squad. And of course, the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, and the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next points to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. They're still doing this. Like, if you haven't signed up for this now, I can't imagine they're going to do this that much longer. It's a $5 bet that wins $300 in bonus bets. This is probably one of the best promotions that's ever been out there. FanDuel.com. Go there, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. You know, I will say, David, it is good to hear that, like, the morale around that team is sort of what you described, being able to hear the players and hear the energy that's there. Like, I know you're not in there, and I know there's only so much that you can get a gauge for and all that, but, like, what makes that so important to me is it plays to the culture that we've all talked about it on this show and on other shows and all that, right? Where even if you've got your head in a hole right now, even if this team's sitting here at 3-6, there's nobody looking around going, oh, this season's done. I'm over. Like, in the past, there are teams, there are organizations, there are versions of this squad that were not ready to come back from a 3-6 stretch. We have seen it before. I know it's rare, but there is that threading the needle that is possible where they have this mindset of we're going to keep winning. Because, again, there is no player in the NFL that sits there and says, you know, I'd like us to lose more so we could get a better draft pick. Players aren't going to think that way. Coaches, maybe. Front office, yes. But, David, this tells me by what you're hearing out there right now and just kind of the way that's a positive sign, at least for the energy around this team heading into Detroit on Sunday.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know what I mean? You have a room full of competitors, and I know that nobody wants to hear, well, your team is trying really hard. Like, you know, that's kind of a, oh, you know, golly gee, shucky darns type of approach.
That's the
But
Jim
look, man,
Zorn
like,
days.
you know, I think I said this on the last squad. Yeah, I mean, I think I said this on a previous squad episode. Like, I've been around locker rooms, Anthony, where the guys gave up. You know what I mean? The guys were just like, all right, like, you know, Cancun on 3, 1, 2, 3, Cancun. And I know that's a Nuggets reference, but it applies to all sports and all competitive nature businesses. You know what I mean? So there is something to that, and you know, you don't want to be you know, the Debo Samuel out here, you know, playing on a contract year, whether it's a new contract in Washington or somewhere else down the line. Like, you need the opportunity to go put good tape down, you know, for whoever is going to be looking out at you. You know, Traylon Burks, first round pick, who's trying to resuscitate his career. You need that opportunity to go out there and do that. So you need to believe that at least the coach is around you. And I think that's really kind of what happens is, you know, and that's where, you know, in the locker room this afternoon, probably not going to be a fun time. Like, every time they lose, it gets less and less and less fun to be in the locker room, because the worse a season goes, the tighter everything has to get, because, you know, it starts on the way outside, the fringe fan who, you know, I only remember the negative and I don't believe anything positive until you're holding up a Lombardi. I'm never going to say you're any good, you know, type of fan. And then as the loses stack, or as the losses stack, it just kind of comes in tighter and tighter on you. And then you just eventually it's, you know, quarterback, coach, captain, whatever in the middle, and all the players around them. And you just get the spears out and you're just pointing them out, and everybody stay out. And, you know, I don't think the team is there yet, but they're certainly getting there. You know what I mean? And the more they see or hear their head coach, you know, have to get asked these questions that we have to ask them, which we have to ask them, the more that's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just part of the business. So there is a little bit of a tightness to it, but at the same time, that tightness comes from the desire to continue competing and not letting all that negativity infiltrate what they're trying to do.
You know, Dave, this is my first time being on the fan side of things. I've never really been a fan of a team. You know, I've always been on a team for a year or two, and I'm on to the next team. And I'm in a group chat with some fans, and they were talking like, you know, he's kind of down on the season, but then they're like, you know what? We've been through Dan Snyder, we've been through Rivera, we've been through Vinny Serrato, we've been through this, and we've been through Bruce Allen. I'm like, you've been through decades of futility, decades of futility. This is a speed bump. This is a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things, honestly. I mean, yes, it sucks. There's a whole bunch of injuries that are based up around it, but this is a blip on the radar. Last season was amazing. Now he's just kind of falling off the cliff. It doesn't mean you have to go back down to the familiar territory of what it was in the past. It don't got to be that way. The midseason mindset, you're 3-6 until you're mathematically eliminated. Ain't nobody thinking about anything else but winning a football game. I know that it's going to be difficult because it's going to be, limited, lesser talented players. I don't want to say they ain't good. They all in the league, but lesser talented players. And when you talk about things getting tight, the margin of error is tighter, right? I mean, the quarterback has to be on his A game. The play caller on your A game. You have to call the best game you've ever called, right? Who is it? Neuheisel's son went out there and beat Penn State. He was an interim OC. All right. Nobody was walking in there thinking, oh man, we fired our OC, so we're going to lose. No, you don't do that. That's not the mentality. Nobody in the locker room is going to dump the whole season over that, but it's definitely, they know it's going to be a tough challenge. And the other thing I want to say is, before you can put the young player on the field, he's had to earn the trust on the practice field. He's had to earn the trust in the meeting rooms. We only get to see him for 60 minutes, maybe 20 to 30 plays on Sundays, and we're pissed off that they're not playing more. But we don't know what their activities are in the meetings. We don't know how this person's habits are on the practice field. This sucker may drop a pass a day, and one pass a day will have a coach be like, nah, can't do it. Like, I can't do it. I need to have my person be able that I can rely on, even if they've had an up and down season. Right, like Zach Ertz, he's had an up and down season, but on key third down, 3rd and 6, I can rely on 86. So it's the trade-off where you have to earn that trust before you can even put him out there. And I think those things are happening. We'll see who gets trusted the most coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Ertz specifically, that's what still makes him so valuable is those 3rd and 6 moments, those guys that a quarterback can count on. Like, and really, I know it's not going to be Jayden Daniels now for the foreseeable future, but young quarterbacks certainly want to have that veteran. Like a veteran tight end is always a go-to safety net for quarterbacks in those types of situations. And Zach Ertz was a smart decision to bring in. Zach Ertz did deliver last season. We just haven't seen it consistently. There's been more of the mental mistakes than, getting closer to where the positives are that are there. But yeah, you can't. Again, it goes back to what I said, like threading the needle and kind of beating that spot. But, you said something a minute ago, Anthony. I think this is a really, really good point. And it goes to the mindset of like, this is still better and it's still going in the right direction. You just laid out all the crap, all the stuff that's gone on in past decades and in past eras where the resume said the bad was going to lead to more bad. The resume doesn't say that with this group. Whether you want to talk about individual coaches, that's another story. But the front office and what they were able to build last year, and listen, people can be mad at Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn, and we can make jokes about 28-3. Dan Quinn got the Falcons to a Super Bowl and had a lot of success in Atlanta. He's had success as a head coach, and he's had a lot of success as a defensive coordinator. So this is not some head coach that we've never seen as a head coach before. And a lot of teams love this, right? People want to have the new next hot coordinator as their head coach. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. Some guys are just capable of being a specific coordinator, really good offensive mind. Mike McDaniel kind of starting to show us great offensive coordinator, great offensive mind, probably not a head coach. And there's more to it than just like there's so many things that you have to manage as a head coach that don't get involved when you're focused on one unit, one side of the football, and that's it. So you've got a resume here of a lot of people that have had success in the past in certain situations, which is why I'm pissed about the season, but I'm not at the point where I go, oh my God, it's the same thing all over again. Oh, we're going to do it. It's just lazy. Like there's more to it than that. Stop listing all of the BS that's happened in the past. Like this is still a new group of people, top to bottom. You have to give this an opportunity to actually build itself out. Be mad at the season. Be mad at the injuries. Be mad at the things that have gone wrong. But don't sit there and just throw your hands up. Be like, oh, it's the same old thing. It's lazy. Don't be lazy when it comes to this. There's more to what this organization is doing than just the simple, just this little portion right now of what hopefully is going to be a long, successful era with all of them there. We haven't gotten a chance to get to Jayden Daniels, though, and I know we don't know much, and I know there's going to be a lot. There's a lot of reports out there now in terms of whether it's season ending with the elbow or not. And the one thing we do know, David, is that this organization has been very cautious, right? They're going to take their time. They're not going to rush anybody back, and that's certainly a lot easier when, again, you're sitting at 3-6. To me, I was on somebody else's show yesterday, and, the question, of course, came up about how they should handle Jayden Daniels. Look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how long a dislocated elbow should take you. There's plenty of people that can handle that. But what I do know is you've got to evaluate week by week and see whether it's even worth it. And again, it does come down to that risk. If this team is just in a spot where at least they can ride momentum into the end of the season and feel good in the offseason, even if there's no playoffs, that may still be worth bringing him back if the roster has gotten healthier and the offensive line has a little more continuity and things start to turn around in the right direction. If they keep getting punched in the face by the football gods and more injuries are happening, then maybe you just say, you know what, that's it for this season. Let's come back fresh, ready to go, and focused on next year. And I know people hate to say, wait till next year or have that mentality, but sometimes that is the smart thing to do. And I think that's where it's going to have to be, is week after week after week. What does his health look like, first and foremost? But two, what does the season, David, actually look like for this team?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two undeniable truths in leadership that I've learned over my lifetime, and the first one is that anybody can lead when things are going perfect. You know what I mean? Look, you could put me on the sideline on an undefeated Washington Commanders team, and I'm going to look like the biggest genius in NFL history. I'm going to look like the new Bill Walsh. Everybody's going to want me to write a book and tell them all my secrets and all that kind of stuff. It's not until you get into the suck that you really find out who you are as a leader, and it's not until you get there that the organization finds out who you are as a leader. And look, this is the first time we've seen Dan Quinn in the suck with this team. Like, this team started off 0-1. That's great. But until this team was 3-4 this season, they weren't below 500 again from week 2 on. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that it was easy, and that's not to say that Dan Quinn didn't have anything to do with that. He certainly did have something to do with creating all of that goodness and all that good energy, right? But nobody really came out of 0-1 Tampa Bay on the road, rookie, quarterback first start, really feeling any type of way. Like, nobody really came out negative from that game, right? That's ridiculous. So from that point on, everything is going well. And what you do know about Dan Quinn is two things that I can tell you undeniably. One, he's a great man. He's a great human being. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, whoop-de-doo. There's a whole lot of people out here, ladies and gentlemen, that are not good human beings. So that's worth something. And my biggest point of emphasis that I'll say to that is there's a player who no longer plays for this team that used to play for the Dallas Cowboys that now plays for the Dallas Cowboys again. And I will tell you that he no longer plays for this team because he wanted a whole lot more money than this team was willing to give him. So he went back to Dallas to try to get a little bit of that money. And he was so mad about being disrespected, about not getting the money that he wanted, that he didn't lash out at Dan Quinn or Adam Peters. He lashed out at us. It was our fault that he didn't get the money that he needed or that he wanted from this organization. So he has so much love for Dan Quinn and that organization that even when he's feeling wronged, he is going to divert that attention to where it does not belong because he does not want to come at them directly. That tells you how good of a person Dan Quinn is, number one. Two, he's a great culture setter. The culture that was set here incredibly quickly. He let the players have a big hand and role in setting that culture and enforcing it and encouraging it. It's still here right now, as far as we can tell, prior to walking into the locker room this afternoon. But I believe it's still here just from what I heard walking into the facility. So those two things we know. Those are two very important, very valuable things. This team is 3 weeks into the suck. Like, you're not into the suck till you're 3-4. Now they're 3-5. Now they're 3-6. We're 3 weeks in. That's not very much time. You know what I'm saying? Like, 3 weeks ago, I trimmed my beard too short, and now it's not even fully grown back out yet. That's how little time 3 weeks really is in the grand scheme of things.
The beard looks good, by the way, so don't be self-conscious about it. It looks very good. Very good.
Oh, I like me. Believe me. Look, I like me. Don't worry about that. Not as much as some people do, but I like me. But here's the other thing I know too. It's incredibly hard. It's incredible. Like, actually, it's damn near impossible to fix your errors in the middle of the assault. The assault's got to end, right? The assault's got to end first, and that's what we were kind of talking about last week. Like, you got to get a win. You got to get a win somewhere, and honestly, it doesn't even have to be a win in the win column. Like, it's got to be 24-21 loss. You know what I mean? But the loss isn't because we fumbled a snap on a handoff, or it was a really bad read interception, or a really bad blown tackle. It's just a competitive game, and we just lost because the other team was better today. That can end that assault. Right now, the assault is still happening. Right now, the bullets are still flying. The bombs are still going off. And there is no time to really recalibrate and really sit down and say, okay, what have we learned? Where do we go from here? I know they say week to week, we sit down, we want to try to dissect it. But make no mistake, you're still in the middle of this thing. Until they can find a way to end that assault, that's when you can really start to see the benefit and the growth. So, you got a new combatant coming in this weekend, the Detroit Lions. They just lost to the Minnesota Vikings. It's just another example of any given Sunday. So this team has got to find a way to make this Sunday, the Sunday they put a stop to the onslaught. And whether you're 3-7 coming out of it or you're 4-6, make the end of this assault, make the end of this stretch. And now you find your way to get out of that suck, find a way to not get back into it the next week.
DQ is a good man. He's somebody that they talked about signing with Washington because of Dan Quinn. That lets you know that the people on the field are going to play hard for him. Sure, the results haven't been exactly what we wanted, but they're going to show up for him. There have been times I've been in that building before where the season's been long gone, and the head coach's words fall on deaf ears, and it's just like, all right, cool. Let me go get this practice in so I can get the hell up out of here. I've been in those buildings. This team isn't like that. They're built differently in that instance. Getting a W. I always say a win will fix a lot of stuff. The tough part when you're on a losing streak, you got to answer questions about the last game. And then the last game, it's like it's Wednesday and you're still asking me about what happened on Sunday, right? Like, come on, I need to talk about the upcoming week. So getting that W, will be able to control that narrative, be able to control what type of questions that you have to ask. And for me, find a way to get that W. It just means you got to come out scrappy and set the tone, right? You really got to come out and set the tone and just show, this is not going to be that same old play that has been all year, right? Just something different, have to shake it up, bring that same energy out there. Cause I feel like I've said it the last 3 weeks, but you're out there with lesser talent. You don't have all your guys. So you're going to have to find a way to shake some things up and make it happen. But I would love to see them punch Detroit in the mouth and come out here with it and get a W.
And I think that's part of what you have to keep in mind, too, is that weird things happen in the NFL all the time. And it just takes 1 week for something like that to completely flip a season on its head. And I'm not going to rule that out. Marcus Mariota is still one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a backup quarterback for a reason, but he's still one of the best backups. And there's a reason why this team brought him in. All right, David Harrison, Anthony Armstrong, it's Commander Squad. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it, and that's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood, right? Like Built brings an opportunity where your rent can finally actually work for you, which is part of it. But you're also earning points every month on something you already have to pay. So you might as well get something else after it. Built has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know that we sent you. David dropped off here. I had to go talk to Dan Quinn, so we want to make sure he'll put everything, obviously, kind of get in the chat and give us, some of them. What are you rolling your eyes at? What's all the sass there for?
He left us for Dan Quinn. Like, come on, man. What you talking about? You got Nick Ashush. I mean, you got the Nick Ashush over there. You kidding me? You kidding me? That's cool though, man. Ask some good questions for us.
I'm more than happy to let him go if he's going to tell us what Dan Quinn is saying while he's actually out there. And you know what? Dan Quinn probably has a backwards hat on, and I'm okay with it. By the way, I'll say this because you've got a great hat on right now. I am okay with a head coach because I'm seeing more of this now. The team's losing. Backwards hat's totally fine, but that right there, I love it. I know I almost got the one that Matthew McConaughey was wearing. A buddy of mine also had it. I can't do the flat bill or brim or whatever you call it on a hat. That right there, I might have to get one of those. That will work on my head. That will work on my head.
This is a fire one. This is a collaboration with Santana Moss. As you can see, 8 to the 9 on the side right there, man.
Yeah.
So Shout out to Tana. Shout out to the What a Day to Have a Day hat company, man. They I saw it come across and I was like, I want one of those. So
Yep.
it arrived. I'm happy. I'm stoked.
It might be time for me to add to my hat collection. Are you a backwards hat guy at all? Sometimes
I do wear a backwards hat from time to
Me too.
time.
Me too.
I've been told
I'm okay
that I drop. I'm like 5-10 years younger when I'm wearing a backwards hat. Everybody thinks I went and spoke to some first graders and they were like, how old are you? I'm like 42. They're like, how are you so old, but you look so young? I say, you know what? You, sir, are on the top of the Christmas list.
You're like, kids, I use a lot of moisturizer, okay? I take care of myself.
I drink water and mind my business too. I stay the hell out the way.
I hope you told the kids that. I drink water and mind my business.
I did. I let them know. They got to do it, man. They got to do it.
I'm glad that we've all kind of on this show, and now David obviously isn't here, but we can vouch for him too and know that like Chris Rodriguez is kind of like the hill we're all ready to die on here. When you watch him play, like, what do you think the reason is that he hasn't gotten more carries over this time here? Because I felt like we saw those flashes last year, the Giants game, the Titans game, and I remember, I wasn't doing this show with you guys, I was doing a different show, but it was like, you're watching him going like, there's so much talent here. He's gotten faster. He's talked about the work in the offseason, really getting his speed up. I remember it was when he hit 20 miles, that 20 mile an hour mark. When guys hit that in a game, it's like, that's a big milestone. And he hit that in a preseason game. I think it was the Bengals game. And it just kind of became more about like, okay, he's worked hard and he's added this speed and he's really gotten better. Like, what is it? And again, maybe you may not have the answer, but like, it's blown my mind every single week that we haven't seen more from him, especially with Bill not like running away with the carries here.
I'm honestly feeling like it's definitely something that I'm not going to know. We're not going to know. You're probably not going to see it on tape. I mentioned it before. Like, is it something happening? Like, what are the habits like in the practice facility? I'm sure he's a good note taker. I'm assuming he's a good note taker. He works hard on the field, works hard in practice. Does he have a role on special teams? A lot of times when you're that third running back, you're lower down. If they have to bring up an extra linebacker, they try to cut from a position. But yeah, we've said it all year. I think he definitely deserves to get more action. But honestly, man, it's some part about the game, man. When you start to get up there and you realize there's the business involved with it, sometimes the business gets involved. I'm not saying that it is, but sometimes the business gets involved. It's they're trying to get Bill, get him rolling. He can still have he can still have success, right? He can still have some success, but you got to set it up. I just don't think that you're setting up the team for the most success when you're not getting Rodriguez out there. And that's just one of them questions where it's like you got to look and evaluate. Be like, guys, the data is here, right? The data is here that the guy is successful. Right. Let's do more of this. Why do we go away from this? That's a question that's really like in the building question, because it makes sense to me to put him out there.
And I understand, obviously, they've been down the last 3 weeks by, we're talking 2-3 touchdowns, depending on what point of the game it is. So you can't run the ball as much. I get like the strategy, but like how to a point, yes, but they still have gotten to the point where, I guess let's put it this way. If they had more success running the football consistently in some of those chunk yardage plays, which actually Chris Rodriguez, we averaged 5.4 yards a carry against Seattle. So like it is there, but it just feels like to me, this team has kind of been buried in these deep holes and they've almost abandoned the run in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when you get into the deep holes and you're losing by multiple scores, you feel like you got to come back quickly. But I've never seen 14 points get scored on one play. You know what I mean? I've never seen that happen. So if it's early in the game, first quarter, and you're down by 3 scores, it doesn't mean you abandon the run and try to go no huddle 2-minute all day. Take control of the tempo of the game. Hand the rock off. Slow things back down, because that other team have to eventually stop you, right? You have to get some sort of momentum going. The other thing are the mental errors. We've seen way too many mental errors from this team this year. And I think that's something to really pay attention to. I love the saying, you're either coaching it or you're letting it happen. And it's like, where are they allowing these lapses to happen for the false starts and the untimely holdings and obviously there's the PIs, and I think the PIs are starting to get to be a targeting thing that they just know they can throw something on too, because I don't even think all of those are pass interferences that Lattimore's had, but he's got a reputation now. So how do you clean up those small details to not put yourself in the 3rd and 8? You can't do it. You have to throw it in 3rd and 8. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the play calling sequence and play calling cadence to put yourself in positions to run the ball and not be afraid to get back to the run, even if you're down by a couple scores early.
Yeah, because it's not like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt hasn't had his moments and hasn't had his games. But, like, it's one thing if you got, like, Bijan Robinson there or Jahmyr Gibbs or somebody, but it's another where, like, Bill hasn't totally, like, ripped that position, that number 1 spot of the depth chart away. You know, like, he's had his moments, but there's still, I feel like, a lot of opportunities for some other guys. And, you know, at times, Jeremy McNichols has also been a part of that. I mean, how many weeks ago? Was it 3 weeks ago where he was their leading receiver? Like, you have these moments where other guys kind of get these opportunities. So, I don't know, it's kind of, I feel like now we're in that spot as we move forward. I know we talked about it a little bit in this show at the beginning, but like you just look at now where this is that chance, obviously, to have some of those younger guys get those bigger opportunities. And I can imagine too, I mean, you've been in locker rooms after a trade deadline, and I haven't as a player. I think we've established that by now. But, you know, it's like there has to be some level of relief, right? That like, hey, I'm still here. I know what my future is for the rest of the season.
No, yeah, you know you still got a job, and that is definitely exciting. You walk in, okay, my key code still works, my stuff's still in my locker. Nobody called me, so no, it's good. It's good to be back. And then the other side of it is that none of your teammates have been traded. You know, that can be a gut punch too. You know, I know the Jets are 1-7, but they walk in and see Sauce gone. You're like, God, you saw how Breece Hall was hurting, man. Shoot, I'd have made a last-second plea to get Breece Hall or something in there, just the way it's hurt and how bad as he was feeling, but. Now, coming over the trade deadline, man, and going into the end of this season, I want all the players just to focus in on week by week and take the extra effort, not to just know your offense and know your stuff, but you got to know what the other team is going to do to you. You got to know what Detroit does well on offense so that you can play well against it. I think that's the biggest thing, is that they're not playing sticky enough to the most common concepts. Teams take advantage of them, and they determine what they're going to do to you rather than you determining to them. They're not the puncher this year. Last year, they seemed to be the puncher, you know, where they found a way to stay close and counter and then be able to knock you out late. Right now, they're getting haymakers laid on them early. All right. And they're not really working well coming out of that instance. So definitely need to see the young team grow, Nick. But yeah, this has been an interesting season to say the least. I can tell you, it's been a tough one to go through.
It's just felt like it spiraled so quickly. And I think that's where a lot of the frustrations bubbled over for so many people, where you look at it with, even if your expectations, and they shouldn't have been 12 wins again, but if the expectations were wild card, competing for the playoffs, it feels like hit after hit after hit. And I get it. Like, again, I understand how anybody that's a fan of this team looks back on all the years and it's just like another one. It's another, but like, it isn't the same thing there. But this is a situation now that feels like it. And that's what makes it just like emotionally charged for everybody here. And right, you like everybody has everywhere in the world. And I understand why you'd be pissed off at where this situation is. But I'll tell you what, like you mentioned Detroit here, like this is a Detroit team that's coming off a loss to the Vikings. That's angry, that has a lot of weapons and a lot of guys that can do damage offensively for them. I mean, what Detroit has to offer. And by the way, Jared Goff is actually better and a more efficient quarterback now, not under Ben Johnson. So it's like the offense has gotten more efficient with Jared Goff at quarterback, as opposed to their previous offense. I know it's similar, but not under Ben Johnson anymore, essentially. And for all the talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown or, you know, Jameson Williams is a deep threat, which he is. I mean, I'll just tell you this now. If you dabble, I would take the over on longest reception for Jameson Williams this week. This is going to be one of those spots. But, I mean, who gets forgotten in all this? It's not the running backs. It's not those receivers. It's Sam Laporta on top of that. I mean, it's one of the best young tight ends in the NFL, and that's another weapon that this defense has to watch, which is really bad considering those mismatches with linebackers have already been an issue. You're throwing in one of the best tight ends in the NFL out there going out, and I mean, we could see a big game from Sam Laporta against this defense too.
There's a lot of weapons over there for Detroit. They all came back too. I saw a clip about how Jameson Williams, he's not having as much production this year, and the OC feels bad about it. So this could be a week where they're trying to get him woken up a little bit. So you have to be prepared for that. Be prepared for that speed. Be prepared and know that coming in. Know that these guys are going to try to set an example. But I think the way you fight back, man, I mentioned it earlier, you got to set the tone up front. You got to try to disrupt these crossing routes and these timing routes and slow down that speed. But, yeah, you're going to have a hell of a test. And I don't know, is it? Did they give the report on Lattimore? I know all I've seen was that it was a feared ACL.
I think it's all. It hasn't actually. My guess is it's probably going to be confirmed today when Dan Quinn's talking right now while he's talking. Since we're doing this show obviously live, I would guess we probably see that, and maybe David will drop that in the chat for us while he's sitting there in the press conference. I think it's. Again, you could tell, right? Like the towel over his head, hugging teammates, like limping around. Like you kind of know, okay, this is probably it in that sense.
So, I mean, he's out. He's out. So, I mean, you're down. But I mean, I don't know, man. It takes one of them effort. Everybody got to be on their A game, man. It's like there ain't no other way to do it. You know, you down 8.5. You trying to defend home turf. You know what I mean? Team coming in pissed off because you beat them last year, and now they gonna try to come in here and prove a point, but. You know, you still can ruin their Sunday a little bit.
And listen, there's always a chance too that guys get overlooked. That this may be one of those trap games for Detroit. I mean, there's very easily that opportunity. We see it a lot in the NFL where they look at them and go, okay, like Commanders are beat up. Jayden's not going to be out there. Half the receivers are out. All these different things, and you overlook. I think the key is you know how I feel. Got to get a good start in the first quarter. Like you can't be down 17-0 or you're screwed. I mean, you think it was bad against Dallas, knowing that you couldn't come back against the Cowboys with the guys they have at wide receiver and the big plays that they could make. Now double that with everybody that Detroit's got offensively. You're down 17-0 in the first quarter. This is a 50-3 game when it's all said and done. So they can't let that be the case. So if it's run the ball, it's eat clock, keep the Lions offense off the field. I think that's at least one of the ways that you have some semblance of control here, but they're just going to have to go out pissed off. Like at this point now, it's go out pissed off, angry at the season, take it out on the Lions and see where it goes. And maybe you get a couple of bounces. Let's also remember the Lions probably aren't happy considering they were eliminated in the divisional round last year with all those turnovers to this same Washington team. So they're pissed off about the Vikings and they're also angry about what happened last year. So there's a lot certainly that's there, but my hope is, and this is the mental side of it that has nothing to do with, that this, I know it's not the same Commanders team, but they look back and go, hey, we did it last year in the playoffs. We've at least got it. Like, if you can use anything to put a chip on your shoulder, that's an opportunity for you to do it there too.
Yeah, if you know you've beaten them before, right? You have that little feather in your cap. You got that little hat tip where you can always look up and say, hey, scoreboard, right? But I think right here, big thing about running the ball, controlling the offense is that you got to pay attention to 97. Aiden Hutchinson, man. Dude is a beast. He's going to be lined up over there over Josh Connerly. So what's your plan for Connerly? What's your plan for Aiden Hutchinson? It's got to be a chip every single time. Lay's, Ruffles, Pringles, Doritos, Cooler Ranch, Sun Chip.
That's a lot of good choices right
there. Kale chips, you name it. Apple chips, all the chips. I sound like Bubba. All of the chips. I need to see 3-4 people chipping Aiden Hutchinson on the way out, right? What's the plan to help your team be successful this week? Because that's going to be key, man. You got to run the rock. Give me some Chris Rodriguez, right? You get some cute little screens to throw off that pass rush. You'll get some plays on the back end. You got Brian Branch, Terry, and Arnold. There's some good players over there. But I think there's still going to be some money to be had, some money to be made. I would love to see if Terry's going to be back, but I already said you should shut him down. So who knows? Whoever the hell line up, man, get ready to ball. Period. Point blank. Get ready to ball.
And that's what it's got to be. Like that's got to be the mindset. David just put in the chat here. Dan Quinn says one thing that they're going to be is they're focused on competitiveness and they're holding 3 full speed practices this week. So it's clearly let's get a little tougher. Let's make this just be. I mean, what does something like that do to a team when you start adding a little bit extra and making it clearer that, like, hey, bare minimum, we got to be mentally tougher this week?
I mean, it lets you know. I feel like all bets are off, right? Like if a young guy is having a good 3 strong days, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a surprise call up or early in the lineup in the first quarter, right? See if he's going to be able to carry that same momentum from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if he can carry that into Sunday. And then on the flip side, if there's an OG that maybe he's having a rough week, maybe that OG gets to sit down a little bit and gets to back up to let this young guy go and shine. This is a way that Dan Quinn is letting everybody know all hands are on deck. All bets are off. If you're not having a good week, don't be surprised if you have a little bit less playing time, because we're trying to put the best 53, the right 53 on the field coming Sunday.
All right, final thoughts coming up next, quickly, right here on Commander Squad. All right, Commanders are 8.5-point dogs in this at home. I think that number could get a little worse, potentially. Here's what I will say. After all the things you and I have talked about here today, I'm not going to sit here and be a homer and just say I think the Commanders are going to win. But what I do think is you will see some competitive plays from this team against the Lions team that's just going to outman them, plain and simple. Like, let's be realistic here. The odds are stacked against this team. If they win and they shock the NFL world as massive, massive dogs in this, good for them. But all I want to see game in and game out as they continue to just try and get healthy where they can is I want to see fight. I want to see the guys aren't giving up on Dan Quinn and this coaching staff, and I want to see some smarter plays. I want to see guys defensively knowing that they can just make tackles, that they can actually just cover somebody. Those are the little things. They may be boring. It may not be exciting. It may not be, we're talking about NFC Championship game, but this is what happens when you're rebuilding a team. It's the little victories. This team needs to dream big, but they got to celebrate small right now in the spots where they do have successes. That's what I want to see Sunday against Detroit, Anthony.
I love it. There's a recipe to win. All right. There's always going to be a recipe to win. Dan Quinn's going to deliver that in there. But I'm looking at 28 sacks that had the Detroit Lions have between Aiden Hutchinson and Al-Qadim Muhammad. They got 13 total. So how you protect your quarterback, how you control the tempo of the game is going to be big. And I could play a little homer as well. I already know it's going to be a tough uphill battle. We already know that. I get that. But you got to do those little things right. Run, tackle, block, protect the quarterback. If you keep the ball in your hands, if you find a way to score, I'm going to just say score each drive. I don't think you have to necessarily go all crazy and go for it on every fourth down and try to get touchdown No, I think if you can create a drive, play the field position game, let your defense try to, create a stop here or there, you can give yourself a chance to get a win and be in it late, right? I'd be in it late. I do know Detroit is definitely the superior team in this matchup. They got a lot of firepower, but the way to give yourself a chance, find a way to turn the ball over and win the time of possession battle.
And I would say this too. The Lions team total is at 29.5. I bet the over on that, just for anybody that wants a little early sprinkle. Feel free to do that. As Bet Boy Tony says, Hutchinson is playing like a demon right now. That is a great way to describe it. I'm going to steal that from you, Bet Boy Tony. Playing like a demon. It's usually like animal or a demon. It makes it extra scary, especially for a guy that's coming after your backup quarterback. All right, Anthony Armstrong, David Harrison is listening to what Dan Quinn has to say now. Of course, we will all be back Sunday after Commanders Lions, and throughout the season, no matter what happens, this is where you vent. This is where you can feel good, where you can feel bad, whatever the case is. We will be here after every one of those games. Give us a follow on all of the socials. It's Commander Squad.